Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome back. So I've been getting an influx in the comment section specifically asking me for the latest Nexomon 3 news. This has been going on for the last few weeks at this point, and unfortunately there wasn't really an update to go over, that is until now. The developers recently put out a short devlog showcasing some of the game's battle UI and some other information surrounding that. While I would normally just save this for Monster Tamer news, my buddy Barry Bandit over here on YouTube brought something up in particular that I found quite interesting. Okay, so as you can see on screen, combat in Nexomon 3 will be multi-battle, and it seems that the monsters themselves have placeholder skills, but the idea is definitely there. Nexomon attack one at a time. They can also use solo targeting as well as spread moves. They can decide to use a shield to defend, and there is even a field type, which indicates that different areas will come with them different effects based on the environment, which is a cool touch that gives the game something different than just a standard weather effect. There were also some notes from the developer in the Discord server. Here they said, firstly, the original skill buttons were too mobile-centric. Big icons didn't really convey anything useful, so we'll probably still use that style in a mobile version, but I think it's best to use skill names. Other data related to each skill may be added to these slots. I think it'd be pretty cool to show little numbers depending on the current target, like the hit percentage, etc. A simple event log was added. It's clearly missing a lot of needed info like damage or target. I want to explore it further after seeing how the rest of the UI develops. For now, it just telegraphs our intent to have an event log, as suggested previously. The reverse view has been added. It follows the same philosophy of being a background process without prompts. At any point, you can toggle the highlighted member and press a shortcut to do a quick swap with the current active turn member. I'm calling it quick swap to differentiate it from another feature to change your party composition later on. Yes, a well-timed quick swap may effectively allow you or your opponent to replace a target of an incoming projectile or skill. It is atypical to a classic RPG, but I find it rather interesting. It's empty in the video, but one of the mechanics to spice up battles is the presence of general conditions on the battlefield. The simplest example would be a terrain or weather effect that may alter element effectiveness, but that's just a basic case. Field conditions can be relevant to any curious effects that are detached from a specific Nexomon, say a skill that lets you summon a black hole which eats any projectiles, ally or enemy for a while, regardless of the caster being around anymore, or an enemy launching missiles that will drop into the future despite the enemy already being dead, etc. That sort of thing would be tracked into this view as a field condition. Added Nexomon outlining support to have a better idea of whose turn it is and who's being targeted. Not very important if your camera is still set in cinematic mode. Mostly useful if you like the classic static view. A note on skill targeting that may not be trivial. Skills have a bit of a smart activation condition. Despite me targeting an enemy, if I use a shield, it will default to the caster regardless. Partially to avoid accidentally buffing enemies and partly to further speed up battles as to not force a player to move the cursor. That's why I can buff and heal without targeting my own party in the video. However, I'm a little conflicted because I can imagine this sort of cool effects, like, for example, a type of poison that hurts you if you try to heal. In that case, you might want to actually heal an enemy, etc. Sure, the smart system could figure that out and let you heal the enemy, but I'm not sure that sort of exception would be confusing, maybe just at first. There's also the matter of total length of battle. Even though the battle system is now snappy and responsive, it's almost certain that it will not be shorter than a classic 1v1 in that regard. I think our best approach is to make each individual battle a meaningful experience, always difficult and risky, but always highly rewarding. That is, I'd like this to stop being a grinding game, do a few hopefully challenging battles, and you're golden. None of the videos we've shown so far contributed mechanics that make this a risky or difficult game. We'll start touching upon those matters in the next logs. Well, maybe the next one will be related to the overworld instead. So definitely a bunch of interesting stuff there. Now, something my buddy Barry Bandit brought up and might not end up being anything, but still definitely worth talking about, is that the UI in this devlog is actually showing off a PlayStation controller input, which, if you don't know, Nexomon 3 currently does not have any confirmed platforms. And before you assume just because the previous two games came out on all platforms that this means this game will, do note that the publisher P-Cube, that was likely the driving factor behind getting the games on consoles, as publishers usually are not necessarily the publisher listed for Nexomon 3. As far as we know, Nexomon 3 doesn't have a publisher yet. It could be self-publishing, I'm not 100% sure, but it's pretty interesting, and it's not the remnants of a previous game either, since the third is being developed from the ground up. Now, that being said, this doesn't confirm PlayStation as a platform or anything like that. It could just be very possible that the developer uses a PlayStation controller while developing, but I definitely thought it was worth noting and making a video on because I think a lot of people are just assuming Nexomon 3 is going to be out on every platform, and in reality, we don't exactly know that to be the case. Developer alluded to mobile mobile for sure being a thing, since they mentioned making bigger icons, but again, nothing's like concretely confirmed. I also want to say, while Nexomon 3 might look like it's in an early stage of development, it seems like things are going to be ramping up exponentially. Sure, it seems like battles are taking place in a developer room void right now, but I think people would be surprised how quickly the world itself will come together once everything's sort of fleshed out, and he even alluded to that in one of the posts when they talked about maybe having an overworld devlog next. There's also a pretty good chance that they are intentionally not showing us overworld areas to surprise us with that devlog, but either way, make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you're not already to stay up to date on all the Nexomon news, or if you're just a fan of monster taming games in general. That's pretty much all we got today, guys, with this Nexomon devlog. I really love covering anything Nexomon related, and while this game definitely feels very different to the previous ones, I've got some high hopes for it. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and if you could take a second to double check that you actually are subscribed, as we are so close to 100,000 subscribers. I mean, like, insanely close. Like, if you could click that button, I'd really appreciate it. Also wanted to say special thanks to our supporters, especially Wrathful Beast, Candy, Morency, TragSoft, Nemo, and Chronomon, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.